Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Baka. We are an anime podcast that every 2 weeks watches an anime, then comes together to talk about it. Sometimes we watch on one season. Sometimes we take 2 episodes to watch 2 seasons. And that's what we did with our current anime. We watched the 2nd season of Overlord. And to help me, Troy, your humble, gracious host, to talk about it is my other humble, gracious host. Friends, cousins. We're related.
First you needed to know this.
I can tell.
Yeah.
We have the Jon Snow to my fiery-haired wildling. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with this relationship.
It just means you don't know nothing.
I don't know nothing. Well, yeah, everybody's seen it. You die, right? So
you're a few seasons behind, huh?
Oh, okay. Actually, I've only read the books. So.
Oh wait, yeah.
And the books are vastly different than the show, though.
In some ways, yeah. From what I've heard.
Some ways
yeah.
not. Depends what storyline you're following. How are you, Jeremy? And what version of Skyrim have you been playing this week?
Well, actually, I'm visiting from the evil dimension, as I have shaved off the rest of the beard. Yeah. But I mean, I was actually wondering, when you have less of a beard to get a goatee, does that make you less evil, or is it just like it's the center of evil and anything else is just better?
It depends if it's the 90s or not.
Okay.
If you're listening to the Grunge Midget.
Yeah, that's right. Well, of course. So yeah, Skyrim is great. I've actually not played it as much as I've been playing Dauntless since we got to mess around in that. That's actually been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've been. It's like a free to play Monster Hunter online game, and if you're into that kind of thing, there's no reason not to play it. It's an open beta, everyone can play it, and we've been having a blast.
And soon you're gonna be able to pet dogs.
Really? Can you bring them with you, like into battle?
I'm wondering if it's something you can get to like sniff out where they are,
like distract the monster. Like go dog.
Okay,
Eat
so
the dog.
Our other guest is the Theon Greyjoy to my blood sausage.
Oh,
Jason,
God,
how are you?
I know that one.
I don't.
Cheers, Game of Thrones, folks. I did good this week.
Yeah. Theon Greyjoy is less of a man today.
The way you said Jon Snow earlier, because you were kind of slow on the John, I thought you were going to say John Cena.
One of these days. I'll save that for a special occasion.
It'll be a HOTS related one.
What you been up to, Jason?
Actually, for my son's birthday, we got a Switch, and I've been trying out Breath of the Wild and thoroughly enjoying it. Actually, I came home 2 days ago, and my son. So both my sons, we got them these credit cards where we can put, we can control not only how much money is on it, but like where they can spend it.
Smart.
Cool.
Yeah. So like if they go to like a store that we've not on the list, that they'll swipe it, it'll be declined. But so I come home and he's bought like all the DLC for it.
Oh jeez.
So I'm like, yeah, that's
right.
I have to buy. Yeah, I'm having a blast with it. It's I have some disagreements with calling it a Zelda game in some respects, and I think that has a lot to do with the bosses, and like these shrines have very little fighting in them, and so
it's the least dungeony Zelda game ever, and it is weird. That is probably, but the open world is beautiful. But and the levels are fun, but they're just not normal dungeons. Find compass, find map,
find key, open door, find
mini boss, get the second tier. Yeah.
Is it just more? It's just more in the vein of like Skyrim and The Witcher 3 and stuff, where it's the open world with things to do. Is that what you'd say? It's more in the spectrum of?
It's very Fallout-ish in that respect, because it has a main storyline. You can just go do whatever the crap you want, but the main storyline is like super important. But yeah, it's having a blast, and yeah, highly recommend it. Switch is coming down in price, I think.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Okay, this episode brought to you by Nintendo. We should go on to talk about our anime.
Not gonna tell us how you're doing?
Oh, yeah, how's Troy?
I literally haven't. I've been playing Dauntless with you guys, and I'm still watching New Girl on the couch. I did want to call out the third season of My Hero Academia is building up to a very big pivotal moment, and it is just killing it. And everyone knows I'm a fanboy at this point of My Hero Academia. For those of you who are also United States of Smash, baby. Okay.
That's a little creepy.
Why do people keep telling me that? Second season of Overlord. We're gonna do our non-spoiler reviews, but we'll also do a real quick recap of where you were from last season, and then what you thought of this new season, and then at the end we'll do our full review for everything. Okay, Jeremy, this is your anime. You brought us here. You start us off.
So I don't remember if I was a 5 or a 4 because it's just right there in between them for me. So like a really high 4, low 5 for that for the first season. But I really enjoyed it. I love the way that they depicted the character of Steins and the strategy that he had to use and everything
season 1, right?
In the first season. Yeah. And yeah, I think that with this season, they did a really good job fleshing out the other characters and letting Steins kind of take a little bit more of a back seat to show that this is a big world and these characters can hold their own as entertaining protagonists in it, or antagonists, depending on the character. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it.
Jason, how about you?
I think the departure from Steins as a central character, because he still is a central character in the second season, but he's just gets so much less screen time, I think was a good move, and specifically because of how the first season went. And I think one thing I'm starting to like, nearing the end of season 2, just this little tick in the back of my brain, because like with ReZero, throughout the entire series, there was always this nagging feeling like, what brought him here? Why is he here? Who is this person that's constantly threatening his life? With this one, we got a very quick, okay, server's going offline, but he stayed in, and then that's it. Like we get a couple things, but I think it's starting to come to this point where I think I'm looking forward to season 3 a lot, but it's where we're going to need to start either hitting on it or brush it off completely and not bring it up again. Because of how immersive this world is in the second season. It's like the world building is spot on.
I think that we get a few hints that seem to imply that either in the next season or one shortly after that.
Do remember we're in the non-spoiler section.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot more information. So I do think they're going to. I don't think they're going to brush it off. I actually think they're going to dig right into it.
So Jason, what is your review? Still great? Still?
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic.
Okay. For me, if you listened to it last season, I was bored and upset at the main character. One of those things changed, one of them didn't. But I actually think the second season is much, much better. I was not bored. I still have a lot of issues with the main character, but because he did really take a back seat, I was into this anime, and it kind of confirmed what I said for the last episode. This is actually a good anime, and the problem was lying in my personal taste. They took out they put a back seat of the thing I didn't really like, and I was like, oh, I'm perfectly content now. And they actually did address some of my direct criticisms in this season, so it was much better for me. Okay, guys.
I just quick shout out to our favorite penguin.
Oh yeah, I love that guy. I will take over.
Player, I think it was.
By cleaning toilets.
Troy, sorry to derail.
No worries. Jason will no longer be on the show. We're replacing him with a stuffed penguin. Yeah, twist of irony. We need to do the opening and ending theme song talk. For me, it was good, but because season ones were so good, it just didn't quite hit that levels for me. So what did you guys think?
No, the opening I thought was not as good as the first one, both in storytelling and just musically for me, my musical taste. The outro I felt was not as good storytelling wise, but I felt musically it was better than, like, for my personal taste, it was better than the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think that, like, with the first one, there were so many blonde girls. I was like, is that the same girl? Is that the same girl? So I was actually having a hard time distinguishing what story it was trying to tell me in the intro.
I called in. Funny story. I called in my daughter, the one who designed our logo, right? So I'm like, she just done some animations, and I'm like, hey, look at this blonde character.
Yeah,
4 or 5 seconds of the intro. Is this the same blonde character?
Right. Yeah. So I was actually a little bit confused by that, and I'm in the same boat as you guys. That first season intro was so good. That's a hard act to follow. Yeah. I did think the music was good. You just can't beat that. For the outro, Albedo was so important in the first season. And so having the outro really focus on her in the first season made sense. And it gave us a nice insight into her, and that whole outro was about her personality and perspective. In this, it still had her image and everything. Like, it was still supposed to be about her, but she doesn't play as big a role. And it almost felt weak because of that. But the music matched the anime tone perfectly for every scene that it was brought up in. It kind of changed the tone of the anime, I would say, actually, because this is a far more melancholic, melodramatic season in many parts.
I had Game of Thrones vibes. You mentioned something about Game of Thrones in a text message, and I was already getting that feel, especially in the second arc. Okay, so let's get into the actual discussion. So this is our big spoiler warning. If you listen before, you know what this is. But if this is your first time, this is where we warn you away, because we are going to spoil everything. We go over characters, we go over plot, and also just a heads up that my daughter got a new dog, and I will do everything I can for the sound quality. But God help us, there's probably going to be barking in the background. Okay. I think that's all the cautions I can give. So we got to talk about this beginning of this first season. First, we have a woman in it's not Thule Society. I keep thinking it's the Society. Is this
Slain
Theocracy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to forget that, but next time it comes up, but it doesn't come up too much. Slain Theocracy playing with a Rubik's Cube, and they're talking about some of the events of season 1. This is interesting because it just shows that there are things from the real world have integrated here. And they talk about, like, 600 years ago, people came and brought this here. Any quick thoughts on that before we get to the really important one?
I wonder how many people it was that showed up 600 years ago. And if it was a small group, like, what kind of a time warp thing is going on here?
Right, because Yggdrasil was only a 12-year-old game.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very confused by it and eager to find out how they link things together. But I think it's from Yggdrasil.
Some of the stuff we said doesn't make any sense. You might want to go check out our season 1 episode, because this is about a guy stuck in an MMO, body but gets transported to an actual real fantasy world after this game shut down. So it's not quite Sword Art Online. But it's kind of in the same genre.
So for just a real quick recap, like, they call it DMMO or drop MMO. And so they mention that it's a virtual reality of some kind, but it's got to be a deeper than just headset, because, I mean, he can't get out of it. I mean, if it was just a headset, he'd just be able to lift the thing off of his eyes and he's done. Right. So
similar to Sword Art Online. Like a
Matrix thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so then the other scene is an old adventuring woman talking to a dragon, and it becomes clear in this conversation that the dragon used to be a warrior, at least humanoid, because he had a human-sized armor, and we get a flashback of him fighting Shaltir, the vampire, in Ainz's kingdom, And she's talking about if you had stayed in your old form, you would have been the most powerful thing. And he mentions a ring he had that was like a super powerful item and lets you. And this ring does come up later, and I think it's setting up for this ring being an important thing. But he's talking about world-class items just like Ainz was in the last season. Guys, what are your theories on this dragon and what this means? He's got to be a human player, right?
Mm-hmm. That's my first thought. Is like this has got to be a player.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I wonder if he's one of the 600 years ago, and he's still alive.
And he took the dragon form,
or maybe he got pulled in like during beta.
The beta test's gone awry.
The open beta ended and he disappeared.
So that's some horrible QA.
World. And maybe time moves differently, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's a question. Shaltir was a custom-made character. How could he have been fighting her?
Maybe it was so a lot of times in these games you'll have NPCs that are basically just copies.
A model, right?
Like a base model. So maybe this is a base model of Shaltir, and then the Shaltir that we know is like.
Except for he explicitly states things are changing, and she's like, "Are they just not following the rules of the world?" He's like, "No, they are evil," and I'm pretty sure he's talking about Ainz.
I am too, yeah. At least that's the impression I got.
And this was right after the flashback, so it almost felt like he fought Shaltir when in the last season before she fought. But that doesn't really fit in for what we know about that scenario.
Well, they mention an event from 100 years ago, too, in her conversation with him.
Right.
She says, would this have something to do with an event from 100 years ago? And I took that to be the time when he fought Shaltir, 100 years ago. I could be wrong, but that was just my assumption.
So another thing that came to my mind was like, for instance, in World of Warcraft, we have thousands of years of lore, but the game's only been out for 13 years. So
there's one other caveat I have. One other thing that happened, it doesn't happen until the final episode, so I am just making a super jump here. When Shaltir sees the character Klein, she stops and she says, "Is that?" And that's the end. And I was like, why would she know Klein? But Klein's wearing the ring that this dragon guy had when he would have fought her.
Climb. I kept thinking you were saying climb. Okay.
Is it climb with a...
Yeah, like with a B, like a silent B.
Yeah, I thought it was with a B.
Okay, so I've written down what I heard, but none of the names are ever written down in front of me. So that's probably going to happen a lot.
I thought maybe you were talking about the rogue for a second there, and I'm like, oh no, he means the blonde fighter kid.
The blonde fighter kid. But my point is, my theory is Shaltir recognizes the ring, not the boy.
Is that the ring? That's a good theory.
If that's true, why does Ainz's Shaltir recognize a ring from a different Shaltir fighting 100 years ago?
That's a good question.
I wonder if it has something to do with retro lore. So, like, perhaps Ainz is slowly working backwards as much as he's working forward. Like, things that existed in history are being rewritten.
Well, and also, what is it? They mentioned Shaltir is like hundreds of years old, right?
Yeah. So, like lore for her NPC character.
Right. Yeah. So if lore becomes a reality for these characters once the servers switched, that's a plausibility that happened in her past, but just like in Yggdrasil.
Well, it would slowly be filled in, working backwards as time corrects.
So I think this is one of those things that's probably going to be answered in the manga before it's answered in the anime, and our listeners may know. This is something we actually don't want to know. This is actually we want to see this in the anime. So if you could not spoil that for us, we absolutely appreciate when you guys correct us. We had a YouTube comment talk about the time stop spell and what it was.
Oh, that was brilliant!
Awesome,
super helpful, and we love it when you guys do that. But
don't spoil it for us in the future. The future episodes.
It's rude to spoil Oh wait.
Yeah, right. At least give a spoiler warning, right?
Okay, we should go into the actual story.
Spoiler warning.
We catch up with our main character battling a basilisk who is not very hard, even though we hear later characters say that's the hardest thing ever.
Yep.
So this is a good time to talk about Ainz and his character arc through this season and what you guys thought.
I have mixed feelings because I was thinking the anime was going to go more towards a, hey, we all might be different species, but let's work together. Let's impress the humans so that we can make friends. And then he turns nearly full bad guy by the end of the anime.
So I have something to contribute in that regard, and that is that when I say Ainz took a back seat, I mean both figuratively and literally. He wants so much to figure out what the extent of his subordinates is. Like, how independent are they? How autonomous can they be? Can they learn? Can they figure out tactics? Or are they really just restricted to the NPCs that were originally made by his friends? And because of this, a lot of the things that we see happening are not truly Ainz strategies or tactics. They're more like he's saying, my larger strategy is A, and so I'm going to give this person a job and see how they handle it. But I'm going to make sure that whatever they do, like in the case of Cocytus later, whatever they do, it doesn't really affect my major strategy. Whereas later when we see the really, really bad things happening, where Ainz is being a horrible, complete evil character, he actually left things in the charge of a more evil character, I think, than him. And so, like, I wonder how much of Ainz's perceived character growth into evil is really just us seeing what happens when different subordinates are in control, and then recognizing that Ainz letting them be in control, he carries the responsibility for their actions.
My theory is that as he loses his human self more and more, and I think not only does the green glow keep his emotions in check, I think it's slowly turning him into Ainz and less office worker.
Yeah.
And I think the more he goes down that road, the less and less he cares about his humanity.
I had kind of theorized that in the last season. I had said that I thought I had the Momonga voice, which was the human office worker who's playing the game, and then there's the Ainz voice, and I had suggested one was becoming more the other, and I was really surprised there's a ton of Momonga voice in this season. When we do see him, we get to see a lot of the human guy, and I'm going to come back to that for my complaint. But I was actually surprised how much the human side was coming out, because I thought that too, but it really felt in this season that human guy is very much still in there, and it is not fading.
I don't. Okay, so I don't think particularly he's fading. I think he's losing his humanity, and I think he's becoming less human and more lich. Is
this the part where I should drop my complaint? Because
yeah, go for it.
My biggest issue was not seeing the humans' reaction to the Ainz's actions. So what really was frustrating was that they weren't just hiding Momonga's voice behind a veil. Like, you don't get to see the human side. No, he'd sit on Shaltir, and I get the 5-minute monologue about how he's embarrassed. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I accidentally turned on lizard porn for these poor kids. What have I done? Yeah. But then he's slaughtering and subjugating a species, and I don't get to hear what his thoughts are or his inner reaction to that. And that discrepancy drove me insane. It was like nails on a chalkboard, especially through the first arc. They do actually address it in the final episode of this season. He finally says, man, I have just not cared about human lives anymore. I'm all about just taking care of my guild. And that felt really good to me. It was like, okay, he's self-aware of what he's doing. Thank God. I just didn't know it was an itch I needed to scratch. But because throughout this whole season, he's like, I'm embarrassed. I'm sitting on this girl and that kind of stuff. I'm like, why do I get to hear that and not go kill those lizard men?
So, if you remember in the first season, he actually did make the comment about how I should be upset when I'm watching these village people get slaughtered, but it doesn't seem to bother me at all. And then when he's down there actually killing them, he's like, these soldiers, I'm killing them, and it doesn't bother me at all.
Also, remember, immediately after that, he goes and saves 2 young girls because he was inspired by a guildmate who did the same thing.
But that, I think, is the point. He didn't save them because he had some kind of altruistic purpose. In fact, he was like, I'm going to have to go get rid of them. They saw my real face. And then he changed his mind. The reason he saved them was because he was motivated by the memories of a friend. And I think that think of it like in the idea of
just say that.
What's that?
Didn't Troy just say that?
Well, what I mean is, like, you know how people say that they would happily give up their lives in defense of a stranger. But if you compare that to how happily you'd give your life in exchange for your child or someone who is a close friend of yours, there is a disconnect that people really have, even though they don't want to admit it, between themselves and a stranger, that they don't have between themselves and a close associate, friend, or family member. And so I think with Ainz, the only friends that are left for him, and he kind of thinks of them as family, are his guild members, which are just NPC proxies now. Like every one of these NPCs, we see scenes where he overlays his old friends on the NPCs they made and sees them behaving in the same way, takes joy at it, takes joy in that. So I think that he actually cares about their emotions and what they want and what those people would do when he's reminded. And so his actions, which might appear to be his own humanity motivating him, if we pay attention to what actually motivated him to look at that village and say, I should do something, it was entirely because a friend said, we should fix that. And he goes, yeah, my friend would do that. Let's go do it. It wasn't himself that was motivated to do it.
Right, but why did that go away? Why?
I don't think it ever went away. I don't think there was a single thing that you could point at where he did something selfless and altruistic that was for him. I think it was always for one of his subordinates.
But why not save the lizard village for his friend?
Which
they didn't need saving was the thing. So if you notice, every time he's ever intervened,
you could argue they did from him.
Every time he's ever intervened, it's always been for the benefits, betterment of the Great Tomb of Nazarick.
Yep.
But it's always been in defense of an aggressor.
You mean a defense against an aggressor?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I guess I am super on board with Ainz turning evil, and I don't want to be like, oh, how dare the main character not be heroic? Oh, I love evil main characters. Light Yagami, Death Note, you could argue Lelouch from Code Geass. They were great examples of people who, they had their own reasons, and you kind of will go along with them like, oh man, you've descended into darkness, and I'm super okay with that. It just felt super inconsistent that he would then get embarrassed about sitting on a girl, and that and like you said, he is still very empathetic to these NPCs that are his family, his friends, but that there's absolutely no empathy towards any other living being.
Yep.
And he specifically calls out humans in the final episode, but the lizard men are not humans, so it's not just humans that he doesn't like.
I thought he would have more of an affinity to.
Right.
To Inhumans, yeah.
Honestly, we'll get into this lizard arc in a second, but the whole time I thought he's got some master plan that's going to benefit both of them. I can't wait to see what it is. And then it just ended up, no, I just need more dead bodies, so I'm just killing you guys.
Which, honestly, like, I cannot say he's wrong. Logically, entirely objectively, sociopathically.
If you're trying to win.
Yeah. It's what you do. You turn those. I mean, if you've ever played one of those RTS games like Disciples 3 or any of those games, right? Where
and as an evil character, it makes sense. He's just he doesn't always act evil because then he's worried about frivolous stuff or being embarrassed.
But every time that he expresses those emotions about his friends, something happens, that light appears. And there's even that scene where he's remembering his friends and he's happy and everything and he's slapping his chair and he's like, yes.
Yeah, he gets it.
And then he gets it and he goes, this too, huh?
But that emotion still hit him. And we never see a moment of, man, maybe it's wrong to kill these lizard men. Whoop, nope, I need to kill these lizard men. That would make more sense. Or even like he explains in the final episode, man, I just don't have that empathy anymore at all.
I think they did it, though. I think they explained it in the first season and this. Yeah.
It is very much explained. What I'm saying is it feels inconsistent with how the character behaves in comedic moments and other moments versus how he's acting. It just does not feel consistent to me. I'm super okay with him being evil. He just doesn't feel all... And he's not all evil. He's very much self-serving evil. He's not going to be evil just for fun or anything like that. He's very clear about that. It's hard to fully complain about it when at that final episode he did complain or explain it. My biggest complaint is that the Momonga voice was not acknowledging these evil choices that he makes. A human office worker should realize that subjugating and wiping out another species is a bad choice, and he's very aware of what these choices are. He's not like, oh, murdering this person is a good thing. He knows he's doing an evil thing. He just doesn't care. What did the office worker think about that? And it comes back in the last episode where I said, I care about the player trapped inside Ainz. You guys were caring about Ainz. It kind of comes back to that too. Yeah.
Okay.
About Zaryushu? Or Zaryushu?
We're not to him yet. He's not in the story yet.
Fine.
We catch up with the other Guardians, the NPCs that came with him from his guild. Sebas is currently collecting info. Most of them are building a decoy base for himself. Demiurge is collecting parchments to create magic scrolls so they can create more magic scrolls.
What did they call the sheep?
Oh God, the Albion sheep or something like that. It was the location that he's at. I can't remember where it's at.
Oh, okay. It was a location and then sheep.
Yes,
okay.
And
are they
it's
sheep?
So bad. Like the
people,
idea, it's people. It's got to be people.
It's got to be people. Wondering.
And Ainz is too, like, he just doesn't care enough to even question.
Well, I had said this in the last season because he had sent out Sebas and Shaltir to just go start murdering people and sending the dead bodies home.
Mm-hmm.
But the order had been bad people that no one will miss. It wasn't so much like punish the bad. It was if no one's going to care, they're gone.
Right.
And we had talked about that a little bit, and this is just it's expanding even further. Human life is literally worth paper to him.
Now, yeah. Here's the thing that was weird to me is that Demiurge was specifically sent to the place where Inhumans or basically subhumans are at, but the way Demiurge describes it sounds so much like he's describing a human and just trying to skirt around the term that I'm like, how subhuman are these humans? I don't think they really are.
And Ainz is like, I'd prefer goats, but I guess this is fine.
I guess sheep are okay. So aloof there.
Shaltir has turned to alcoholism.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you had called this out because you had already seen this one episode that Shaltir is affected by her events of the last season.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't quite what I wanted. But we get from the other Guardians what I wanted anyway, so it's very much a moot point to me.
I think it's actually something that takes a long time to resolve, and I don't think that, honestly, I'm not satisfied with how they resolved it in season 2. I think it's going to be a lingering issue with Shaltir.
I just wanted to see some Guardian questioning him, and we do get that. I just thought Shaltir would be in a good place for that based on everything she saw go down from the front line of her battle with him.
Oh, she didn't, though. She forgot all that.
Right.
She had to be told.
That was my complaint last season, though, is that her memory's gone. So
you're saying missed opportunity.
Now we couldn't grow. And she does have it. It does affect her character still, like you had said, but it just turns her into an alcoholic for sure. And then we meet the penguin. Cocytus is sent to go to war. And we find out later with these lizard men that we're going to talk about. And then we come to the lizard men, and then we do Zaryushu. By the way, these lizard men have the worst names ever.
They're hard.
Zaryushu Shasha, I believe is his name.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's Chief Shasha is his brother's leader of the village. Zaryushu Shasha is a wandering traveler who left the village. It's kind of considered an exile, but he helps the village anyway. What did you guys think of this lizard man who carries the story for like 4 or 5 episodes?
This lizard man anime could have been its own.
Absolutely.
The characters were like very intriguing. It was really well written. Their culture was fascinating to learn about. Like the world building they did in literal episodes was phenomenal.
And it's such a small aspect of the world. It's not like, hey, let's explain how this whole country. It's like this tiny 3 or 4 lizard villages, and we will get into the nitty gritty of their society and how this all works and how they mate.
and how they handled this event previously, each tribe handling it differently.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if we would have paid as much attention to them and found as much humanity that's the term I wound up using for it in the texts. Right. In these lizard people, if there wasn't this wild threat overhanging above them from a character that we know is well capable of utterly annihilating them. And so like, from the onset of our introduction to these guys, we're scared for them because we know what's coming. And yet...
Because the hangman's noose is right above them, right?
Yes. From the moment we're introduced, like in the same episode, that hangman's noose gets put up there. And yet these characters are introduced in a way to deliberately instill a connection. They are so well made. Their characters are so agreeable and pleasant.
Well, and they're well rounded. Yeah. They have different facets. And like one of my favorite guys gets cut down as if he was nothing. It was like, oh my god.
Yep. I absolutely love the whole lizard arc. These guys are awesome. Zaryusu is humble and yet a wise force for.
He'd be a great anime protagonist.
Yeah, he would.
Really would.
He would.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, they get this big warning. The sky clouds fear magic faces come out of it and warn them, you have 8 days and we're gonna wipe you out. So Zaryusu tells his tribe, we need to unite all the tribes and go down fighting because we're going to lose. And when we get driven out, if we're separate, we will go extinct. If we go out together, we might have a chance of at least continue to exist as a species. But they have no beliefs that they can win this fight from the outside. They're like, he made faces in the sky. We have sticks and swords.
Tier 2 magic, basically.
Yeah, we cannot handle this. So, but the tribes do not get along. They actually have just been coming off of a war where 2 of the tribes have been wiped out. Been wiped out and they merged with another one, right?
They got absorbed into it, yeah.
Absorbed into it. So he first goes to the Red Eye tribe and meets their
sexy albino lizard
leader who's standing in for the chief. She's not a chief, but she's standing in because the chief just died, and she's she was second in command. This is Crush Lulu, another horrible name. I don't know if I call her Crush or Lulu.
So, I think one thing that really, really endeared me about specifically both Crush and Zaryusu. Zaryusu did the tropey anime, I think you're beautiful, marry me. But what I really, really, really appreciated about it is it didn't get corny or campy. He committed. He was like, marry me. You 100% serious and 100% committed.
Yep.
He's like, I'm here to talk about business, but also you need to marry me.
Yeah, it was almost hard to watch his desperation at some points. I loved their tales.
Oh
my god!
It's bad if she had just if she had fallen in love just as fast, been like, yes, I'm in. That would have been like, oh, that's kind of odd. But because she was like, well, that is a little forward, and that we had to go through this arc of them getting to know each other, it definitely worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very good.
Guys, is it weird? I thought Crush Lulu was cute. Very awkward.
They drew her as a fairly good-looking lizard.
I'm like,
hottest lizard ever.
It's kind of hot, and I don't know how I feel about it.
You gotta remember, she did resort to cannibalism.
That is very true.
She does confess that, her tribe had resorted to cannibalism after the war.
Yeah, he's like, how did you guys survive? How did you guys get food? As soon as he said that, I was like, they ate each other.
Good call.
I played too much RimWorld.
Yes.
They do convince her tribe to join up, and they go on to the next one, the Dragon Tusk tribe.
Absolutely loved this.
And this is where we meet Mr. Satan, who voices what's his name?
Yeah, so in the dub, he's the same voice actor for Mr. Satan in the dub.
Oh, that's great.
His name is Zuzu, I believe, and they have to. It's the classic, like, you have to fight me before I respect you.
To the death, he says.
So they beat the crap out of each other, but Zaryusu wins. And then, of course, the next part is, if we're going to work together, we got to get drunk together. Warriors. Zusu is just your classic anime trope warrior.
Yep.
And what's crazy is, like, I could see these people as humans, but they are lizard men who all look very similar.
Yep. And, his behavior makes it believable that his tribe could absorb the remnants of the previous two tribes too. Like, I could see them accepting that.
Right, because they were so...
Yeah.
And I liked how he started with a weapon, and it's revealed he's a monk, so he doesn't actually use weapons, and it was a decoy. It was actually a pretty cool fight. They do agree to join forces, and they all the tribes get together. The big battle starts, and the undead just march out. And Cocytus is directing this. Should we talk about Cocytus and his arc? Because he did actually go through some major things in this. I don't have him in the notes, but what did you guys think of Cocytus' arc? We didn't really talk about him last season.
Again, this was weird for me because throughout the first season, we're following Ainz through his story. And then all of a sudden it's like Ainz is not only taking a step back for this lizard man arc, but then now we're focusing strictly on Cocytus, and Cocytus is having to make decisions for himself. He's having to make strategic planning. He
calls Demiurge for help. Like, I'm losing the battle. Don't tell Ainz, but what do I do?
Right? Don't tell Dad.
but he's having to process this, and I found it fascinating. And the way this whole entire arc was presented, I was sold on the idea of Ainz taking a back seat. Even before I knew he was going to take a backseat for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
It directly addressed my complaint from last season that I was not into the NPC Guardian characters because, we had known that whatever was written in their character bios was how they were set. But even Ainz is surprised. Oh, they are growing past that. And he does even mention that could mean they grow past me.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's what I want. I want these NPCs to question their morality, and they have. But I looked up like character cards. They have different alignments. Sebas is good. He's a heroic good character. Demiurge is like a demon evil character, and they are on the same team. And what's that effect going to be? And I'm really excited for that, knowing that they're starting from those bios and now growing out. Jeremy, what was it you had said earlier tonight before we started recording?
I thought it was really interesting that their decisions cannot be based on what we would be familiar with in a character, which is, you're born, you live through an entire lifetime of experience, however many decades it might be, and you base your decisions and your actions on those things that you've acquired. But these guys, they just instantly came into existence. And so they effectively have a starting point. And unless we're to jump on the idea of time kind of working backwards to fill in that blank of time, like what we saw with Shaltir. Maybe it is working that way, but we don't know for sure. So at this point, it kind of seems like from the moment of their coming into existence, it's the first time that they get to start questioning, well, this is how I was made, and these are the decisions laid out in front of me, or the options. I don't think I'm going to make a decision in alignment with what I'm being told. And they get to start questioning things and start developing personalities of their own. And it's a really cool thing to see.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
So Cocytus loses this battle.
He does. And he even sends in a undead mage. Lich mage who's using fire magic. He dies from a stab to the eye wound, and yet we saw Ainz take 2 stabs to the eye wound without any effect.
He was a fleshier.
Yeah, lesser lich.
But I noticed he had the same orb in his tummy that Ainz had. Because I thought that what was going to happen is we were going to learn Ainz's one true weakness is that whoever they killed this guy would be how you kill Ainz.
No, that's not how physical damage. How MMOs work.
How?
So I remember that in the first season, the thief or assassin girl called him an ancient lich, right? So it's a completely different category of like he's so far beyond a regular lich that it's almost no connection.
So in classic RPG, liches are not very powerful up close. They've got powerful magic, but they can't take too many hits, and that's why most of them have phylacteries so that they can come back. So they'll hide their phylactery. So when they inevitably die, because they're going to die quickly, they can then come back, regenerate a new phylactery, and then go back out. And Ainz is past that.
So does this hint that they have health bars then? It seemed like if he stabbed him in the brain and that killed a lich, but we know Ainz is taking blows to the. Take
a closer look at the scene. Two things. One, we don't know if Clementine's weapons were magical or if she just had procs on them. They're two different categories, and it looked like procs because she had to activate something to get it to explode. Ice burst or what's ice fang?
Yeah.
Ice pain.
Frost pain.
Frost pain is a straight up magical item, and so it will do tons more damage to magical creatures. And because he's a lesser lich, he's more fleshy. The first stab in the eye didn't kill him. Right. It was the forceful, like, I'm going through your head with it, is what killed him.
I do think that health bars and resistances come into play, just because of how much they talk about it. But I think that at that point with Ainz, like, if you're going to draw the comparison, I think that Ainz's resistance is so high that nothing he's faced could get past the resistance to even touch his health bar. But in his fight with Shaltir, he does say, "How come you didn't look at my health?" So there is a reservoir, but yeah, I agree with Jason.
We touched on that last season too. Zarius, who does win this fight with the help of Crush Lulu and some of the other lizard chiefs, and they celebrate their win. And Ainz calls Cicadas and says, "Hey, you need to come talk to me." And then the story does go back to Ainz for the next 2 episodes. So, and this is kind of feels like the format they're going for, where it's like, here's an arc showing you the effects of Ainz, and then we're going to come back in for a very brief time to retouch up with Ainz, figure out why he's done this, where this came from, and then we'll go to another arc, which I think works.
Mm-hmm.
I loved this questioning because he finds out, not only did Cicadas not just learn from his loss, but he was able to extrapolate new information and also better planning from his experience. And he's realizing that, these aren't just programs anymore.
Yeah, it seemed to me, I got the impression, and I think he may have even explicitly stated it, that was his intent when he put Cicadas in charge here also, was to find out if they're going to be able to learn tactics. Like, can a warrior class learn tactics?
Yeah, I think he does say that when he goes lays down in his bed, and he's all
he's happy. Like, he's gleeful. He's like,
I was hoping that would happen.
Yeah. So which actually adds to the idea that he is using strategy in this regard, but he's letting these characters make their own decisions within that limit.
We talked about this a lot offline, and I've just kind of come to the thought where he's a very good game player and manager type, but not a chess player, tactician. But that's what Demiurge is for and stuff. Because
he's not leading raids.
He calls out, like, when Demiurge has a plan, he's like, I have no idea what he's doing. And in the first or second episode, he says, I'm just a regular office worker, but he has been managing this guild for a very long time, and he knows it very well in and out, and he is very good at getting everything into place. So I see where I think we've come to agreement on how we feel about him being strategy and what you mean by that.
Yep.
Because I had felt you were giving him overdue credit, but after you'd explained it, I think we're solid.
Yeah,
so
regular
he
guy.
Punishes Cicadas with having to wipe out the Lizardman single-handedly, right?
So Cicadas, he tells Cicadas, go kill them by yourself. And Cicadas is like, well, what if we take control of them? Because they have some really exceptional specific fighters. If we make them all undead, they'll all just be bland undead. But we could get some really powerful warriors out of this for our army. And Demiurge is actually the one who convinces him of this. Demiurge kind of lays out the longer, more strategic reasons for it. And and I love how Demiurge every time is like, and I know you were just thinking it and making me say it. And everyone else is like, oh, Ainz is so smart. And Ainz is like, Yes, that what you said is a good idea. I real quick, what did you guys think of Victim? The 8th floor guardian.
What does Victim do? I know Victim's job is to die and come back, but for what purpose?
Well, that's that spell where he says that in order to protect his guardians and himself from mind control, Victim has to die to help a spell go off. But I don't know anything beyond Victim being the guardian of level 8.
He's super creepily drawn.
Oh, and his voice. Oh,
he seemed like a safeguard because we see Ainz like carrying him around sometimes. Like, if something goes wrong, I'm ready. I'm ready to kill this thing.
Yep. Which kind of doesn't make sense to me. I actually kind of wanted to complain a little bit about that whole scene that happens later because I don't really understand. Has he already killed Victim and popped the spell off so that he's gained the immunity to mind control and his guardians have? If not, if he's carrying Victim around for some reason, why hasn't he done that? Is it necessary Victim stays with him for the spell to remain in effect? Like, I don't fully understand that.
Victim has the appearance of a 1 month long bright.
Yeah, it's a fetus. A fetus with weird weird wings.
I thought it was like a brain or something.
Oh no. Yeah, no, it's
that
a
makes
floating
it just
fetus.
that much more creepy.
Yeah, and especially how when it speaks, it has like fingernails scratching chalk going in the background as well. It's a very successfully creepy character.
Yeah, and every time Victim speaks, his words are usually read backwards from the end to the beginning of the sentence.
Love it. Love it.
Other than Ainz then using this as an example of, my orders aren't absolute. Try to think outside the box. Do what is best, even if what I said is not the best. All that matters is taking care of the guild and just kind of establishing that.
He repeatedly says throughout this season, it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I keep going, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say you're not perfect. Don't say you make mistakes. This is not good because these subordinates, they're a lot of them are evil and they are going to eat you up eventually. You are planting seeds of insubordination. This is not good.
The next thing they do is a big show for the lizard men, which was actually pretty cool. He apparently has a giant on his team. They like make a stage in the middle of the lizard lake and they make the Zaryusu and his brother come out and bow before them. And he tells them, look, you're going to work for me, but we're going to come kick your butts first.
I thought this was so sad because as soon as they saw the display of power, they're like, we surrender. And he's like, you don't get to surrender.
Yeah, you beat my army and I have to beat you before you can do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And he gives them 4 hours to prep. And I guess it's merciful to only kill the chiefs, and it kind of makes sense from a strategic point. Take out their leaders so that all that's left are the people who saw you take out their leaders after they had already bowed to him. We get Zaryusu and Crush Lulu, saying their goodbyes, and all the chiefs decide, Crush Lulu will stay behind to lead the lizards, and they don't need her for the fight anyway, because they're going to die, and they don't need a healer to do that. And then her last request is get me pregnant to Zaryusu.
Which I thought was amazing.
It was.
It wasn't as good as how's the baby making going?
Yeah, from Mr. Satan's voice popping in on them cuddling earlier.
I can imagine it being in that voice because I saw the character do it, but in Mr. Satan's voice.
Yeah.
It was pretty great.
This kind of comes back. So they go to that decoy tomb that they had made, and I'm not really quite sure. They go there because they want to make sure they're not being followed, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're worried that someone will have picked up on them, with that big display and come to attack. So they always go to the fake one first.
Watching through the sky mirror, basically.
And the throne there is made of skeletons, and he's really creeped out by the fact that there's human skulls on there. Another thing that's like, wait, I thought you didn't care, but it's fine.
Yeah, that did feel inconsistent when he mentioned the skulls.
It's little stuff like that that
was weird. Yeah,
to me. But so instead he sits on Shelter, which it's a great comedic scene of Albedo like, I need to leave the room for him. And then destroying something and then coming back and a wall needs to be repaired.
I bumped into it.
Just fell apart. I don't know what happened.
Sheltier loving it, and Ainz being embarrassed, but he's like, I have to see this through.
And it's interesting too because Albedo is the one who says, Sheltier, you need to punish Sheltier, but she did not expect him to do it this way.
Because I think Albedo wants to be in that spot. Like that's Albedo's like, hey, use me as a chair.
Sit on me.
Comfortable with those bones.
I know. That's what I kept thinking. I was like, that's horrible.
Then he messes up again because he's like, let's see what the lizard people are doing. Like, the one that fought isn't even there. Well, I can find him real quick. And he puts on lizard porn.
Yep.
Okay. And I have a little bit of a complaint about this because it's very funny. It is very, very humorous scene. You didn't need to show the lizards actually mating. It was very clear what he was watching. And then after the scene, you didn't need to go back and show me Zarayusu's vinegar strokes. That's a little too much for me. I was like, oh, come on. I didn't need to know what a lizard man looked like when he had a good time.
Anime, you're amazing.
Anyway. Game of Thrones would have done it. You gotta think of this as almost an anime Game of Thrones.
Yep.
We're in that level of maturity. Except for then jokes about lizard porn. Then Kakaitis has the final battle with Zarayusu and the other chiefs, slaughters almost all of them instantly. Zarayusu gets in like one hit for like a minor scrape on Kakaitis' hand. And they all die. It's a good fight, but these characters are straight up OP. Like, oh yeah, I have a thing that if you hit me with anything, it doesn't hurt. Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just showed how powerful all of his generals really are.
Yeah.
And how an entire army is just no match for one of his generals.
Yeah.
Not even him.
There's, especially in the second arc, there's brought out that the humans are just so underpowered in this world, and they're kind of coming to that realization, like, we actually suck.
Yep.
And I'm really wondering where they go with that, because it does kind of seem like they're getting ready to make a human character very important. So after the fight, Kakaitis actually asked if they can bring them back to life. So Ainz agrees, after agreeing with Crush Lulu that she will be a spy for him on the Lizardmen, which kind of seemed weird since she's the leader.
That was why.
Right, I mean, I get it, and the Lizardmen are so headstrong, it wouldn't take much for one warrior to be like, look, I'm going to lead a rebellion. But you could have also said, just keep them in line.
I did like how he was like, and if at any moment I feel there's betrayal, I'll have this trigger spell that will kill him. And then his like other voice comes on. It's like, I wish a spell like that actually existed.
Yeah. It seems to me like foreshadowing that Zaryusu himself will at some point try to lead an insurrection, and Krushlulu will be caught between, if I report him, he dies. If I don't report him, he dies.
I can see that because it was very specific. The thing that was just weird to me was very specifically using the word spy, and I'm like, well, if you have the leader working for you, that's not really a spy because that is yours. But it's fine.
I guess it's enforced loyalty.
Yeah, and like you said, it could very much be foreshadowing to the point where she will have to actually do spying. And just to make it clearer, Zaryusu is brought back to life.
Oh man, this was touching. Just how helpless he was, and how he couldn't even speak properly and hardly move.
His third language in the English, he's just kind of like, oh, thank you, Lord.
He asked for his brother to be revived as well,
and Mr. Satan, I believe, as well. Yeah.
Zuzu or Zaza.
It was just so sad seeing him so pitiful and asking for their lives too, just begging. And I mean, how often in an anime do you see an inhuman lizard race portrayed in such a way that you have intense pity and sympathy for them? It doesn't happen. This was really, really well done because of that.
In the English, they don't seem all that upset about it. They're kind of like, man, this guy is so freaking awesome. This is actually going to be sweet for us. There's a little bit of that going on because he even says, can we prosper? And Ainz is like, oh yeah, you guys are going to prosper under me. That's going to happen. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, well that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I got the impression that it was sort of we are so defeated and so broken that when we look at you and ask you these questions of can we prosper, it's almost like it's our last hope. It's like we're pleading, are we going to prosper? I'm so destroyed. And so, yeah, that's what gave me the sense of pity. But it could have just been reading instead of hearing because of the subtitles. Yeah.
And then we go on to a much more complicated arc, but we're on to so quick side note. Before we do this show, we do a little quick survey to figure out where everyone felt. And we all pick a favorite character. It's almost always something for each of us. We all pick this character, my boy Sebas. The only thing I did want to call this out on Sebas, at first I was really upset because I had called out his voice last episode, how great his voice actor was. He was King Bradley from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. And they changed the voice actor, and I was like, "Oh, that's really bummed because that just doesn't carry the tone." I mentioned it in the last episode. It gave me chills. That voice, that voice actor died of cancer before the season was made, and that was a huge bummer to find out. But Sebas was great, and that voice actor did do a very good job with him. It's just it's hard to fill those shoes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But your guys' thoughts on Sebas in this season?
I'm going to let Jerry go first because I have a question for you guys afterwards.
Okay. I thought Sebas was really cool because he's stuck in a situation where he has to question whether his reaction to things is just pure wrong. Am I cursed because I see things and am motivated to do the opposite of everybody around me?
He's a heroic character.
Yeah.
Everyone else is a friggin' demon.
Exactly. And that's such a fascinating thing because ordinarily you think that the person committing evil is cursed and forced to do evil. So to see that coming from a character who is trying to do good deeds, questioning the morality of his own good deeds because his moral compass is so upside down because of his peers, it's really, really a fascinating character to watch. And seeing him develop and sort of just make these decisions that I'm going to do this because I know it's right. I'm going to follow my motivation and trust that in his case, my creator, I don't remember the name of the guy who made him, but this is what he believed was right. And I have to trust that that's what he programmed me to do, right? Set it as my motivations. And so he does these very good things, undeniably good things. And then he has to try to justify how they might benefit someone who's evil and doesn't care.
How they're selfish. This could totally be selfish saving this poor woman.
And it was just so fascinating watching him have to deal with those situations. So that was great.
Lord Touch Me was his.
Yeah, how could I forget that? Come on. And what a great name for a heroic good player.
What? I'm trying to find out what race he is.
I do not know.
He's part of the Pleiades. Or at least he was the leader. Well, currently at this point in the story, he still is the leader of the Pleiades.
Of course, Intoma is a Pleiades, and she's very different from Nabe.
Right. It's not a species.
Well, yeah, because Solution's a succubus, and
actually, I thought Solution was like a giant gel monster. Is she a succubus?
I'll have to find out, but anyway,
man, I hate Solution, by the way.
Oh, I know.
She's now my boy Sebas going on his back.
Well, my question, and that's where my question kind of comes from, is that she called him a traitor. And I don't see how his actions were traitorous to his given.
They weren't only for the benefit of the guild. That's all these people care about. That's what they're programmed to care about. The fact that he's even thinking of anyone else other than Ainz is a huge treachery. Now, Ainz doesn't fully agree with that. As long as they're not really going up against him and the things they do still benefit him, he doesn't mind if there's a little loosey-goosey in the middle. but especially these mates, they are very, don't you ever not do something for Ainz. That is a big no-no.
Okay, you're right. She's not a succubus. She's a slime monster.
I just got that impression from the anime.
Slime battle maid is what they call her.
A slime battle maid. Ah, yes, that's important to distinguish that.
And so, yeah, I'm not finding information on what race Sebas is, but he's obviously not human.
Right.
Yeah.
He's too powerful to be human.
Yeah, but he, Dragonoid. Oh,
what?
Dragonoid. Oh, that's why he's so strong.
Oh.
But yeah, I loved his arc. And I think you said earlier, Troy, that he's a good.
I looked up like character cards and they had alignments. Not like these could be fan made, but he was listed as heroic good. Cocytus was neutral, but most of the characters are like demonically evil.
But yeah, I think that's what I appreciated about Sebas is he was like, is this interfering with my mission? No. Here's this hurt woman on the ground. I'm going to save her because it's what's right. And I believe it's what Lord Touchme would have done if he was here. Kind of. He even went so far that like, he's like, okay, I'm going to go help this woman. And then this guy's like begging for basically help in the same vein. He's like, well, I guess I should help both of them. So he throws him money.
Yeah.
He's like, he's such a good person. He's like, well, I better help both of you so you can get out of here too.
Yep.
And there was connection through this female character he saves and brings back and has healed. There's like human emotions showing up in this character. Like he gets flustered. He cares about her. I don't know if they're romantic or fatherly. It's hard to tell, but there's definitely emotions there. And I hadn't seen any emotions that weren't pre-written into a character's bio about how you had to love Lord Ainz. And I was just like, oh, there's a scene after he saves her, this woman who was a sex slave and beaten, and he saves her off the street, brings her back, and he says, why am I doing this? I guess this is what, who I am and how Lord Touchme programmed me or created me. But the fact that he's even questioning his decisions, I was hooked instantly. It was exactly what I wanted from these Guardians characters. It was perfect, and I was so into Sebas this whole arc.
Mm-hmm.
Into him. But yeah, obviously, Solution objects a lot, and we also there's a whole lot of complicated stuff in this arc. There is the Eight Fingers, who are a crime organization with like 8 different facets. Prostitutes, drugs, thieving,
slavery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they have a group of enforcers called the Six Arms, who are 6. What level are they? Adamantite?
Yeah.
Level warriors, which in this world is like top ranked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because now it almost feels like they need a couple more levels because there's becoming so many adamantite. It felt like there was only going to be a couple, and now they're like, hey, we're all adamantites here.
I remember that in the first season, there was silhouettes of who they were saying, these are adamantine warriors, and there was like, not that many. So I think the numbers have been seriously culled by the end of this season, but they did mention that there are also there's like a heroic tier that seems to be above adventurers. So I think that's where we're going to go next.
He does specifically not let Ainz be called about it because Solution's like, hey, we should call Lord Ainz. He's like, you don't need to call Lord Ainz about anything. You just cure her. Does she hurt her? Because when she goes to cure her, she's like, yeah, but there's no problem with tasting her. And then we never see that had an after effect.
It sure felt like she had her way with her and then healed her up.
Probably. We do see precedent for that.
But the girl is unconscious during that whole ordeal. So not to say that makes it right, but there would be plausibility for why she might not have remembered it.
Yes.
He does bring her food and comfort her when she starts crying and start her healing process. The other story kind of starts with Brain, the guy who got attacked by Shaltir and ran away crying last season, is in Gaziv's home. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Gaziv was hunting him last season, right? Wasn't that the bandit he was sent out by the king to find? Because Brain says, I developed this technique to beat Gaziv, and he was a bandit.
Yeah, no, Gaziv was sent out by the king in response to villages being attacked by an army. He wasn't.
Okay, you're right. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
God, I thought they did mention something about bandits too, though.
The only thing
it felt like they were antagonisting him for some reason before this, and then Gazif finds him and brings him into his home, and they developed a friendship after that point.
So Brian talks about, and I think Gazif also talks about it in this season, how in the past they were like competing and
in a fighting tournament or something.
And after he barely defeated Brian, that he hasn't seen him again since then, and Brian's been trying to train for a way to beat him.
Why
so
can't
I think
get
that's
away from tournaments.
Never. It just can't. Yeah, but they do. I love the fact that they actually turn out to be really good, close friends. I mean, first name basis, which is a huge thing.
Yeah.
And then we also see a group called the Blue Roses, and they are burning drug crops of the Eight Fingers. And these guys will come into play. So that's a group to know too. There's the Eight Fingers, evil. Blue Roses, adamantite adventurers who are for good.
Yep.
Mostly.
Five of the blonde girls from the intro sequence.
Yeah. And the Eight Fingers are quite upset about this woman being captured and we find out later it's the constable's favorite sex slave to beat on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they're offended that someone would even save her. So anyway, Sebas has kind of got himself wrapped up in all this. Then we meet Klein as well. What did you Climb? What did you guys think of Climb?
I mean, the B is silent. I'm just being an ass, but yes.
Oh, okay. So I say it like Clime. Would that work? Climb?
Yeah, like you're climbing something. Climb.
I find his character.
You not climb something with a B?
I really thought the B was silent. I mean,
I'm gonna climb that mountain. I guess sometimes you can hear it, but I don't purposely say the B on.
This is the worst podcast in
Anyways,
history of ever.
What I thought about him.
we're Bakas. Go ahead.
I thought his arc was really well done and fairly intriguing, because so he trains with what is it, Gazif?
Yeah.
They have a quick not training. We're fighting. We're sparring.
Sparring. Yeah. Not Gaston, but Gaston.
Gaston.
So he mentions to him, and also many other people have mentioned to him. It's like, yeah, you're pretty good, but you're kind of at your physical limit because you don't have any talent.
like you're good, but you're not actually good at this.
Like you're really, really great at. I'm going to pick on basketball just because I love you. It's like, you're really, really good at basketball. You will never make it to the NBA. It's basically what everyone keeps telling him, because it's like he seems to be a very capable fighter, but if he comes against anyone with actual talent or skill, he just gets stomped on. But we see him fairly hold his own, even if he gets run through.
Well, I mean, he does develop super jumping power, so
it's part of that particular skill. He has to call that skill, but
just like another super jumping.
Jason, what'd you think of his? You did English dub, right, Jason?
Yeah.
What'd you think of his voice acting? Because I don't usually notice, and I don't usually care, and it's not something I can do, so I have no right to really complain. But we do a review show, so I actually was like, that's kind of bad voice acting. It felt kind of wooden.
It felt red.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was decent. I mean, the emotions were there, but it felt red.
To me, he felt very stereotype anime protagonist, which I think is really interesting because he's a side character in a world that's going to tear him apart because he is not good enough for it.
And Braid keeps reminding him of that, like, I have seen things that blow humanity out of the water.
I love whenever anyone talks about, like, we're awesome. Dude, you don't know what awesome is.
I can't even hurt her fingernail, man. I actually, I'm really surprised at your guys' perception of Climb, because in the subbed version, he came across as a character who was really struggling, and you could connect to him. He was a good character in the subversion, and I wonder how much of the distaste is due to the wooden reading.
It's not so much.
I was attached to him. I thought he was. I liked in his scenes. Yeah. It's just, Troy mentioned the voice actor himself.
Yeah.
Yes, it did feel like maybe a first or third gig. Like it did not feel like a veteran voice actor.
Okay.
If he was the star of this anime, I would actually have a complaint. Like he's very much, I'm going to win on the strength of my heart, and I'm not good at this, but I'm going to muscle my way through. And then later in like 5 episodes, he's going to find a magic item that makes him OP if he uses it with strategy and stuff. That'd be the anime if he was the main character, and it almost writes itself. But because he's in this anime, it's very interesting that this character exists. I'm actually really excited that they took the stereotype anime hero and put him, and I'm really interested to see where he goes. He could very much end up being Ainz' downfall, because if he ever found out what Ainz has done, he would not stop. And it kind of feels like they're building him up to be the human that could challenge the non-humans.
Which is going to be interesting, especially if Sebas keeps his loyalty, because him and Sebas have such a great relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
There's something there. I feel like there's strings there, and I could be wrong. They could definitely Game of Thrones him, and he could be gone in an instant. I never once felt like this character was safe.
Or crippled and happened to be taken care of, so somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
It may not even be Ainz that takes him out.
Any thoughts on? So we also come back to Sebas coming home. Tawari is now a maid under his employ. Any thoughts on her character? I only have one, but I'll let you guys say anything you want to say. There's not a lot for her.
I only have one real thing to say about her, and that is that she kind of comes off a little bit contrived as a character, just in the sense that I find it difficult to believe that Sebas just happened to be walking through the street at just the right moment when the older sister of the Dark Sword girl was in the street. I know, but in an anime like this, where everything has so far been really believable and realistic to me, like I can see how things fit.
She's the older sister of the Blue Rose leader?
No. The Dark
Swords
Sword.
of Darkness.
Yeah, Swords of Darkness.
Remember the
maid.
guy that was actually a girl, like when she's being killed, they found out she was a girl.
Oh, that's the missing sister.
That's why.
Yeah.
I'm looking for group. Your missing sister doesn't matter.
That's why Ainz was kind to her. He was like repeating kindness.
Okay. Honestly, did not get that, and totally thought she was the real princess the whole time because they look identical to me.
Nope.
There's a scene where the princess like rearranges her face, and I'm like, "This is the real princess. That's the shapeshifter." I thought for sure that's where we were going.
That's actually really interesting.
I am a very Baka.
Yeah, no, that's why Ainz was so willing to bend over for her. As far as
because he realized who she was.
Yeah. That to me was just the one glaring thing about the character that I thought that's just too easy. Like she just fell in their lap after we're introduced to her sister and we heard her story. And yeah, it does happen in other anime, but I just didn't expect it from this anime.
I think the one thing I liked about this particular arc is it showed Ainz's hypocriticalness of I'm only going to do things for the betterment of Nazarick. He still has that little twinge in his heart. But also that it didn't go tropey when Tawari had a chance for escape, quote unquote, or to lead a better life, but she wanted to not only get out of that lifestyle that she was in, but she wanted to
bang Sebas.
Yeah.
Sebas.
Well, that too. Who doesn't have attractive men?
Into him.
But that she wanted to work, and I thought that was
that was good.
That was good.
Mm-hmm. She didn't take the pity train. She said, "Let's do something now."
There's a lot of other characters. We meet a lot of the members of Blue Rose. We meet the leader. We meet giant warrior lady.
That's
We
my
meet
snoo-snoo.
twin.
I love that lady. She's awesome.
She is pretty great. Kind of horny.
All the time. All the time.
And Evil Eye, who I had written down, someone called her Evie, so I thought that was her name, but her name was Evil Eye.
I thought Evil Eye was the princess.
Other form,
ego.
yeah.
Me too.
Is she a vampire?
I don't think so.
She's not human, though, right?
Correct.
She's definitely inhuman, and we've only seen her chin.
No,
we've seen her face.
Off her mask. She has red eyes.
Right.
She has a fang.
I didn't see a fang.
She could just have that Suderi snaggle tooth thing.
She's got the red eyes.
She does have red eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was asking.
And
she may be a vampire. I don't know.
She can cast fairly high tier magic, so I wouldn't be surprised if she was a vampire, like Blade style.
She seems so good though. Like
Blade style.
Yeah, half vampire then I guess.
No, Blade was full vampire, right?
No, he was vampire.
No,
He
Blade.
was a Daywalker.
Blade. Oh my
he was Daywalker.
Did you really just think Blade was a full vampire?
No, he's a vampire. He's like Magier and Liesel.
Oh, that's right. Okay. You know how long it's been since I've seen those movies? I never even got a chance to see number 3, which apparently
Hold on. Sebas gets a visit from that constable and a character named Succulent. The
name.
Yeah, again, the names in this anime are so bizarre. Like they say him, I'm like, did he just say climb?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain Ungloss.
and they're basically wanting to blackmail him to get Tori back. So he meets with them, they leave, and then he leaves, and Solution's like, well, I'm calling Nines. That's too much.
I did not expect that. That level of independence and rebellion against the leader of the Pleiades.
Yeah.
Ooh, shocked me.
And tells Nines Sebas has betrayed us. Like,
straight up.
Not even like, hey, there's a situation you should be aware of. It's, by the way, Sebas is straight up stabbing you in the back. Let's deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't really stabbing him in the back. He was just going a bit off script.
Yeah, no, Sebas wasn't doing anything wrong, but it was like she was so ready to put a knife between his shoulders.
That's because Solution's got the same opinion of humans as Albedo.
It's offensive to her that Tori is in the house.
Yeah,
right.
So there's a little bit of snideness to this whole. I need to serve Irons at max capacity. Then we get a great. I love this. Sebas and Brain and Climb all meet up in the city. A child is being attacked, and Sebas steps in, and it gets the other two's attention. Climb goes to him and is like, "Hey, teach me something. You're so freaking cool. Please just teach me something." He's like, "All right, I'm gonna do something. It could kill you. Are you ready?"
Yep.
And he basically comes at him with a lethal blow. And Climb manages to overcome his fear and dodge it. He just
he just stood still.
Yeah,
he just stood still. Sebas deliberately missed.
He faced the fear of death and overcame it. That was the point of that lesson,
right?
And Brain was terrified, and he wasn't even the one standing there,
right? Well, Brain again, who had run away from a vampire crying and left all his men to die, and had just gone through that, sees this and is like. Mind blown. He comes out and he's like, "Okay, guys, I'm sorry to interrupt. How did you do that?" And Sebas is like, "Oh, well, he's like, no, not you. How did you stand there in the face of overwhelming power?"
Yep.
It's a great little. The fact that he came out impressed with Climb, and so Climb is, thinks Sebas is the coolest, and he comes out thinking Climb's the coolest, and there's just this great little triangle of friendship here that forms. It's so cool. They get attacked by assassins. They're like, "Okay, you guys go handle those two. I'll handle those three." Sebas wins easily, and then he watches the other two fight. And the only thing that was weird was Climb was on the left, and he gets told to go right. I'm like, that.
Yeah, they switched.
Yeah, they crossed.
Some OCD part of me was like, no, don't do that. Stay in your lane.
Yep.
I did love how the three assassins throw their blades, and Sebas catches all three with one hand in between his fingers.
Yep.
I mean, to be fair, he is simply one hell of a butler.
Oh, absolutely. Stunning. You're good looking as well.
They decide then that, hey, let's go deal with these 8-Fingers guys. Let's just go together. Because Sebas is like, I'm going to go deal with them. And they're like, we are honor bound to come with you. Basically. And they take the fight to him. Climb and Brain go in the back. Sebas goes in the front. When Sebas finds the constable beating on a woman, and he just slaps him around until he murders him.
This whole scene was so satisfying.
It's so good.
The setup for it, the infiltration, and then him actually, he's like, because the constable's like, help, guards, somebody help. And he's like, I've already dealt with them. It's like, no way, you could have done that. Wait, nobody's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic scene. A little gory, but just really, really, really good payoff.
Yeah.
Did anyone like how you can find traps just like, and they get outlined just like a video game?
I loved that. I loved the bells. So cool. Took me back to Neverwinter Nights days.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. While they are attacking this place, Climb ends up separated, or he like stays behind to guard a hallway, and Coco Doll, who's a leader in the 8-Fingers, and Succulent, that guy from before, who turns out is a illusion assassin,
illusion duelist,
and he beats the crap out of Climb, who tries really hard, and even does well at one point, but then gets stabbed in the back because he fell for another illusion.
Yep.
And then Brain shows up and he's like, yeah, I got this. And just beats the guy. So he's like,
one slice.
With the move that failed against the vampire. And he's like, only one person's ever survived this.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not letting this go, ever.
Yep.
I thought Climb was going to die here. I was like,
oh I did too.
This is Overlord. He's gone. But they do have healing potions, so he does survive.
I from the moment that Climb was with, I don't remember her name, was like Doldoronga or something like that, the big barbarian lady or the warrior lady, and she's asking him, do you have the bells? Do you have the 3 healing potions? I'm like, oh, he's going to get beat up so bad. So when this happened, I immediately was like, it's potion time.
And then she asked him, do you want to go take a rump in the sack?
Yeah, I know, right? She's awesome. She's great.
They managed to capture Coco Doll, and he is arrested.
He is fabulous.
Yeah, because his whole thing was like, they're like, we have to go, but I want him. He's amazing. Wanted Climb.
He'll make so much money.
And then Sebas returns home to find out that Ainz is waiting for him. And Brain goes home and tells Gazes about his day, because they apparently have that kind of relationship now.
They're buds.
They're bros.
And then Climb goes to visit the princess, and he tells her about his day. So I haven't really mentioned the princess. She has been introduced at this point. Climb is her personal bodyguard, and she is very much
She's genius.
She's a political manipulator. She's the little finger of this story in very many ways.
Yeah.
And she's the one having the Blue Rose attack 8-Fingers. Like, her whole thing is, I'm going to wipe out the 8-Fingers.
Because she's introduced as like just this little princess brat that runs around the castle. And in reality, because like, so there's a scene where like her brother and
the Marquis
walk by Climb, and they're like, give our regards to the monster. And you're like, oh, but she's so cute looking. Why do you call her? No,
yeah, like, what a D-bag that calls a cute princess a monster. And then you find out, no, he's being literal.
Like they call her a monster.
And this is the first thing they hint at, because after Climb leaves, she's thinking about this maid who she overheard make fun of him. And she's like, oh, what face do I need to have? And that's where I was like, oh, it's a shapeshifter, because she's like manipulating her smile to get it just right and like changing her mouth. And
it's so much worse.
The maiden is like, I'm going to murder her because no one is one of my boyfriends.
Yes, it's so much worse than a shapeshifter because it's just a complete sociopath.
Yeah, because she doesn't know how to actually have emotions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's just, she has to like put her face in the right position in the mirror.
Yes.
She's
a great character.
Very interesting character because she's very much a leader of these good guys. Like we've met all these heroic characters and they're doing good for the city. And then we find out the one at the head, the one who's organized this all, is a horrific sociopath.
Yes.
What a twist.
And to put it in perspective too, like the Blue Roses is led by a priest who takes her role as essentially a white mage, a priest, very seriously. She's
very serious.
So for her to be tricked, this princess is good. She is really good.
We're running low on time, but any thoughts on, did we already talk about Brain? Any other thoughts on Brain?
He had a great character arc. It made me realize that when he ran from Shaltir, it may have been as much a curse of fear, which seemed to me like that's what Sebas was doing, was like emanating fear. Like you've seen that in video games where they'll emanate a fear area effect, and Climb just resisted it. And that is kind of how I interpreted that scene, as something quite literally a status effect that he resisted. And so it kind of seemed like maybe Brain ran from Shaltir because he couldn't resist the status effect. And but his interaction with Gasov, however we say his name,
Gaziv,
yeah, and how that developed over time made him a really endearing and complex character. I think he actually developed quite a bit.
I completely bought into when he's being a hero, because he's just like, I've kind of got this new outlook on life that my life is basically an ant under boots, and you know what? I might as well do what I want and do some good while I can.
And he also he learned from that interaction with Climb that the only reason Climb could stand
is because he cared about
someone else, and even if it did happen to be a psychotic princess. So Brain was able to look at his friends later, and he cared about them, and that helped him. It was nice.
So we then get the big scene of Ainz dealing with Sebas, and it basically comes down to he orders him to kill Tuari, and when Sebas does follow through with this order, Cocytus blocks the blow. It ends up being a test, and they do a lot of discussing about what to do with Tuari. They are originally just going to send her away with money and her memories erased, and then agree to let her join in as a maid.
This test was less about showing loyalty to Ainz and more proving loyalty to the rest of the Guardians.
Especially Demiurge.
Yeah, Demiurge is the one who asked for it. Ainz was like, no, I completely trust Sebas. And Demiurge is like, yeah, but we find this out later, that let's just test them. Do it for me.
Yeah, because I think if Ainz had not, I think Demiurge probably would be starting some insubordination at this point. I
thought Sebas was super high ranked from the first episodes of season 1, but apparently he's under a lot of these other Guardians.
He's the leader of the Pleiades, but the Pleiades are maids. The Guardians are way above the
right. Because he's not a Guardian. He's literally the butler.
Yeah, in order of power, he's actually, it goes him, Demiurge, and Albedo are all even, from what I've been reading. So they're all equals, just like the tank, the DPS, and the healer kind of thing, or the tank, the DPS, and the status effects. But yeah, I thought this was a great scene. It's a combination of more than one scenes, and in a way that to me came off a little bit clumsy, because at one point Ainz teleports away and they're just done. And then he comes back and the scene just picks up again, and he's like, okay, now we need to discuss what to do with her. And it just came off a little bit clumsy, a little bit awkward to me. I think they could have combined that to make a more fluid scene.
Yeah, we had talked about how, and especially in that first half, it kind of wasn't super clear what they were doing with Tuari. And then they're talking about it like it was. Like, oh yeah, we're totally going to send you away with your memories erased. And I was like, did anyone say that? I don't remember that being, I could have just missed it too. After that, we then get a scene of the psychotic princess talking with her brother in that marquee and kind of revealing her plan. It was weird when the marquis's like, let me see it. Let me see the crazy. And like she pulls out her crazy face. It's like, oh, that's so good.
It's so much better than I thought. Oh my god.
Again, this is why I thought she was a monster, because I thought like literally she let a monster face come out instead of just a crazy face.
That's why I thought her and Evil Eye were the same person.
And then she asks to marry his son.
Yes.
And he's like, no.
He starts yelling and leaps up. That was great.
But her whole thing is really like she's manipulating all these events because of Climb. Like it's
she
to
wants
get
to
Climb.
have Climb's children, but be married to his son, and then kind of replace Climb's children with his children, so that Climb's children can then become royalty.
Yep.
Good times.
And she has to make sure she keeps Climb no matter what. Climb. You got me saying it now. Climb no matter what.
But her plan is she asked basically for military assistance to wipe out the Eight Fingers on this big plan. And then Sebas, who has returned home, and Tuari's been kidnapped again. Now, Ainz had promised her protection. So he calls out Beto. He's like, hey, I'm busy right now. Someone stole something that I promised to protect. We take care of it. She's like, it's just a human. Who cares? I care. I gave my word. We don't let my word not matter anymore. And he this is like the first time he really scolds her or any of the other Guardians. I think it's like the Wolseys come down on them.
And even after the scolding, Albedo is not happy. Like, this is the first time she's never backpedaled and been like, you know what, I'm wrong, I love you. Like, this is the first time she's shown any sort of displeasure with a decision he's made.
Very much.
She's kind of a bitch, right? You can't really just overwrite that.
Well, not just that, but she's thinking for herself because of how much disdain she has for humans, right?
I absolutely agree.
I know what you're saying, though.
Yep.
So I'm going to kind of summarize these next couple of because it's basically a lot of battles. But Demiurge is put in charge of taking care of the Eight Fingers. And they make it very clear that's the priority. It's not about just saving the girl. It's about putting down the people who would bother to even try to go against Ainz. So he's like, hey, we're going to go crush Eight Fingers. And Sebas, you're going to go rescue Tuari.
Which is interesting because nobody knows that they're going against Ainz except Ainz.
Well, he even says that even if they didn't know, they have to be punished.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Everything's going well. The Eight Fingers is losing. Murray does some horrible things to a woman that worked for Eight Fingers.
Yeah. It's one of those creepy scenes because you're like, oh, it's the sweet little innocent one that's always like, oh, I'm so nervous and everything. I'm a boy dressed in a girl's clothes, right? And the lady comes down and she's like, oh, you know what's wrong? Oh, you're a little boy. He's like, are you the mistress of the house? Are you the most important person? And then just up and breaks her leg and drags her off by her hair. And the lady's just wailing. And I'm like, this is amazing.
We find out later they torture her horrifically.
They have a creature eat her from the inside out, and they keep healing her until she's submissive. Like, whoa.
Things are going good for everyone. Everyone's kind of winning. Sebas takes out the Six Arms. Klein and Bran have to fight, what's his name? Succulent again. He pretends to be Tuari, and they save her, but then they realize who it is, and they take on the leader of the Six Arms. Sebas shows up and tanks his punch. He like powers up like 6 times and punches Sebas, and so it's like, meh. Kicks off face, you're dead.
It's great how Sebas, after the fight, he's like, well, that was close. And he's like dusting himself off.
I was just a little stronger than him.
And Brain's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm calling your bull.
The thing that really kind of sends stuff off the rails, though, is the bug maid Entoma.
She's like munching on his
She's
leg.
eating a person from the Eight Fingers. And a couple of the Blue Rose members come upon this, and they're like, whoa, monster, let's get her. And they start a fight, and
at first she's like, "Can we just pretend you guys didn't see me?"
I read that she's actually more of a neutral character. That she'll eat people if she's hungry, but if she doesn't see a point in hurting, she won't hurt you.
Right? Huh? Actually, some of the maids don't see, like, they even say, like, yeah, I've let him in name. Well, who cares? Anyway, Blue Rose members start fighting her, and Evil Eye, who's the most powerful one, shows up and starts. They actually beat her and are about to kill her, and Demiurge comes and rescues. And then Demiurge kills 2 of the Blue Rose members, like, with a snap.
Accidentally, he claims, too.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I thought they were as strong as you. Because
my bad.
Yep.
So Evil Eye is like, okay, I'm gonna die fighting this thing, and Momon shows up and is like, who am I fighting?
I love how infatuated Evil Eye is with Momonga.
I just loved how staged this whole thing felt. Like, Momon lands, says all the things you'd expect from the silly hero that shows up. He's looking at Demiurge.
Except for it's kind of an accident because
he was a complete accident, and I was so confused through this whole thing because I'm like, okay, did Steins prepare for this? Was this part of the expectation? Because he's asking Demiurge, like, what are you trying to do? Like, what's your purpose in this attack? And Demiurge is like laying out bits of the plan. The way that they spoke and the way they moved and the way they interacted with each other, so awesome, so staged.
And obviously, Demiurge meant for this play to happen out, and Ainz just was not catching on until they sat down.
Yes.
Which is hilarious.
So they fight for a little bit, and Demiurge retreats. And he talks with Evil Eye, who's infatuated with him, and is even pointed out to Ainz that she's in love with you. No, she just doesn't trust me.
Yeah.
You don't understand people. I can read her like a book. Then this firewall surrounds a portion of the city after everything, the Eight Fingers have been defeated. And Demiurge has basically taken over a part of the city and filled it with demons. So the princess gathers
like more than half the population.
Yeah. So the princess gathers all the adventurers, and they're all going to rush in and win. And the whole plan leads on Ainz, leading the charge to go take on Demiurge because he's the one strong enough to do it. And of course, Demiurge isn't called. He's going by a fake name. Everyone's wearing masks. All of Ainz's henchmen are wearing masks to hide their identity. Brain refights Shaltir, cuts off her fingernail, flees. Like, I won!
So gleeful.
I did it!
This is the scene where Shaltir sees the ring on Climb. Now, Climb is given a ring from Gaz's that it lets you surpass human limits. This is the same ring the dragon is talking about in the first episode that he's talking to the old warrior woman. He's like, hey, by the way, where's that ring? And she's like, well, I gave it to someone. That's why I say I feel like Climb is being built up for something very important.
Well, he's constantly being given items by people higher than him.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he is actually growing because he's being shown little steps, and like we see him like learning to use his legs. Anyway.
Well, of course, the princess's plan is for him to go into a dangerous situation.
Right. The princess wants him to die in this battle so that she can revive him and have to take care of him
for the rest of his life. Yes. Now, on the topic of the ring, Rigrit specifically said that she beat the snot out of a girl before giving her the ring. And at the end of the last episode, Evil Eye talks about how the rest of the Blue Rose had to help Rigrit beat her up. So I want to know how the ring went from Evil Eye to Gasev.
Oh, that is interesting. Because Gasev said the person who gave this to me trusts me, and so I assumed it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Demiurge and Ainz they go off to battle, and they instead have a sit down, and where Demiurge is like, hey, this is a 4-part plan. We're going to get tons of money from it. We're going to fake this. We're going to make you more popular. We're going to get a ton of dead bodies. It's going to be great. And then he's like, okay, that is a good plan. And so
you had me at a ton of dead bodies.
They go out and have their final battle, and Demiurge is like, oh, you have beaten me. We must retreat. I
just love that during this whole time that he's discussing this with Demiurge, Nabe is just kind of hanging out with three maids.
She's like, I'm going to go battle these maids over here. And they go behind a wall and just talk. What's the name of that human? I can't remember.
And all this time, two maids and Evil Eye are fighting. And Evil Eye is like...
One of the maids has a gun.
Yes, that was weird. That was weird, but it is a game.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Like serious, like straight up, like out of a sci-fi assault rifle. Like,
Yep.
So since Demiurge decides to retreat, Ainz is heralded as the hero of the day. And then we get a quick epilogue. All the 8-finger leaders are captured by Aura and Murray and taken back to become undead slaves. The Blue Roses are celebrating. Poor Evil Eye is totally in love with Ainz.
literally throwing herself at him.
She's like, he's so handsome. I'm like, he is a skeleton. You don't know that.
Well, yeah, I mean, as Momonga. Yeah.
And then Tuori becomes a maid, and everyone kind of goes back to their roles. You know, Climb is helping the princess and all that stuff. And that's kind of where we leave it, with more to come in the future, I'm sure.
Do you think that's why Sebas was fighting so hard for what Tuori's job in the tomb was going to be? Because she didn't want him to be helping with the sheep process?
Yes, I do. I think he did not, because Demiurge is like, I can take her to help me with the sheep.
Yeah, my sheep like to eat a certain mincemeal. She can come help make mincemeal. And he's like, no, she can do regular cooking. Can she?
Yeah.
And not be around that.
Traumatizing.
Oh my god.
I also absolutely love the Evil Eye being in love with Ainz and how much they were teasing her, and it was pretty good.
I did like how Momonga was or Ainz was embarrassed about having to ride on that magical board.
Oh my god, Tensor's floating disc, right? That was so cool. But yes, and yeah, that was really funny. And how he jumped off in haste.
Right?
Yep.
Just wanted to have a cool entrance. I don't know what's happening.
Like, crap, Demiurge. He kept calling him Demiurge, too. That's what cracked me up.
I'm coming, Demon. All right, let's go to our final reviews. You just do for the however you want. I don't
care.
Okay. For this season, definitely a 4. So the whole thing, give it a 4. It was a fun ride. I really enjoyed the story. I loved the story arcs. I like both seasons for different reasons. I can't really put one above the other, but if you come across this one, definitely worth a watch.
I like this one more than I liked last season, and it's a 5 for me. I absolutely love how the world building is just fleshing out, and these characters are developing and they're interacting, and it's just a full cast. I love where they're going with it, and I have so many questions, and I can't wait to see how they're going to answer them. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a masterclass in world building. I still have my specific issues with it. Very high 3 for me for this season. And I'd probably give the whole thing so far a 3. But
I think it's only a 3 for you because we didn't get Pandora's actor this season.
Yeah.
No, and to be honest, I mean, they are addressing a lot of my issues, so I can just see it getting better. I was never bored this season either, like I was last season.
Right on.
Our next anime is Steins Gate. This is actually recommended to us by one of our listeners on Twitter. Thank you for that. It just had a sequel come out, kind of. And so we are going to go back to the original. We haven't seen it before. I've seen enough to know about the bananas in the microwave, and that's about it. So we are going to go watch that. We are watching the first 12 episodes. It is a 24-episode show. So we're going to just watch the first 12 and discuss it next week. If you want to comment on Overlord Season 2, Overlord Season 1, or Steins Gate, or anything.
Don't spoil Steins Gate for us, though.
You can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can reach us on our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found this podcast, and we will get back to you. Thank you, everyone, for who has been leaving comments. The extra info on the animes is delightful. And we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on reviews and topics, anything you feel like talking about. with these animes, we would love to hear. So bring it on. With that, I think we are ready to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Sayonara.